Why is that not? Oh, I got a new phone. Actually, the screen is smaller, isn't it? Interesting. You guys see me and hear me? Oh, wait a minute. What do I have for audio? I'm not wearing my microphone. Can you guys hear me? Oh, you don't see me, huh? Let's see. How about now? Still nothing. Lines? That's weird. How about now? Can you hear me now? Is it fixed? That was weird. Never had that problem before. Alright. Sorry about that, guys. Give the chance for everybody to join up anyways. But now I'll get a bunch of comments saying, can't see you. Can't see you. So many people think that when it's not live, it's actually live. Good. Glad it's working. How's everybody doing? We'll give some time here for everybody to join up. We had our Valentine's Day party today, the one that was rescheduled several times, and the kids had a lot of fun. So, had like basically 2 Valentine's Days. Hi, everybody. Well, it's not the refresh. Hey, man, fan, how's it going? Yeah, that's from our Valentine's Day party. I don't know if you can see it. But, yep, so that was nice. So next week, long as we're sitting here, next week on Wednesday, we've got some stuff going on, so we're not going to have Bible study next week. So the next Bible study will be 2 weeks from today. So, sorry about that. We'll give some time, some people to join up here, and usually about 300 people. Hey, Hollyhock, good to see you. 80 degrees. Wow, that's pretty hot compared to here right now. I think I got up to 39 here. Yeah, 2 parties are better than 1. I guess so. The kids had fun, so. Ah, that must be Mrs. Todd, huh? So, yeah, sorry. I'm not going to have it next week, but we'll pick back up again the week after that, so.
Daddy, I'm still hurt. I'm still hurt.
Daddy will take care of it after the Bible study, okay?
But Dad, don't take it out. It's going to hurt.
You want to go get in the bath?
But is it going to come out when there's water?
What? What's hurting?
Here.
Oh, your finger? Come here. Come here, let me see. I will just look at it.
Don't take it off.
Where is it at?
Right here. Here.
Which one?
This one.
Looks like you got a sliver, baby girl. I'm gonna get a little sliver while people are joining up.
Hey, Dad,
I usually have to wait till there's about 100 people.
Hey, Dad, what are you gonna do? Are you gonna turn on the bath, Daddy?
No, not that.
But Dad, I don't want her.
Come on. See, for Bible study, we take out slivers in our family. Didn't you guys know that? This one?
No.
This one.
Yeah.
It's okay, baby girl.
Is it going to hurt? It hurts.
I think I got it.
Dad, where?
Don't look, I can't see if your head's there. Don't cry, that's alright.
Hurting. Dad, I'm hurting.
I think I got it.
Where? Dad, let me see.
Hold on. Yeah, I got it. It just is hurting because you got a sliver there earlier. And now it's just kind of hurting still.
Dad, where is it?
It's gone. We got it out.
Yay. Thanks, Dad.
Alrighty. Okay, gotcha. I think we're about up to 100. So this week we talked about doing maybe some questions from last week, but I'm not sure if that's necessary or not. And I think I decided, obviously, my view of how I think we should interpret Matthew 24 has implications, but I think we'll get to those as they come up. And so I kind of want to just stick with what I think Matthew 24 says for now. And I can answer some questions if you want to talk about that. Otherwise, we can go right on to Matthew 25 and continue on through the rest of the book and continue going. Or I did say we could answer some questions. So if you guys have some questions based on last week with Matthew 24, let her rip and we can talk about them. But we can certainly continue on also. If you don't got any questions, we can keep going. So, well, thank you. And there's other implications. I mean, me and you have talked a little bit, Hollyhock, on Facebook, and there are other ways. I mean, there are several versions that said that the preterist view. There's a partial preterist and a full preterist, and it centers around both a partial preterist and a full preterist believes that Matthew 24 is in the past, and but a partial preterist thinks that there's still stuff in the future that could happen. But they would agree that Matthew 24 is in the past. I am a full preterist in full disclosure, but I was a partial preterist for a long time. So I got to that point eventually. So that's totally fine. So what's your favorite verse? I don't know. That's too hard. Too many verses. Only question is I have, do you think the Antichrist was? So it may, the thing about Antichrist is that's a rigged word. Would it surprise you to learn that the word Antichrist does not appear in Revelation? Who would that surprise? Would that surprise anybody here that the word Antichrist does not appear in Revelation? Ah, Lori's got it. It's true. So the word Antichrist does not appear in Revelation. So there's a man, there's somebody called a man of lawlessness that's mentioned in John, and there's a guy who institutes the mark of the beast on the hand of the forehead, but it doesn't say he's an Antichrist or anything. It just says there's a guy that does that. So the only place that Antichrist appears in the Bible is in 1 John, and it talks about they were already there in their day. It says they went out from us, and this is how we know they were not from us. They didn't stay with us. And it says such a person is the Antichrist. He denies the Father and the Son. So this says that anybody. Let's just read it. Although that's not in Matthew 24, but I guess it's sideways related. So we'll go over here. Oh, my thing's not streaming. That's weird. Boy, why am I having a hard time getting this to mirror? All kind of technical difficulties tonight. Sorry, guys. There we go. How do I get out of this screen? There we go. My new phone I still haven't gotten the hang of, believe it or not. Alright, so sorry about that. Okay, here we go. So this is the only place that Antichrist pops up here. It says, who is the liar? It is whoever denies that Jesus is the Christ. Such a person is the Antichrist, denying the Father and the Son. No one who denies the Son has the Father. Whoever acknowledges the Son has the Father also. So it also says here in 1 John chapter 2, dear children, this is the last hour. And as you have heard that the Antichrist is coming, even now many Antichrists have come. This is how we know it is the last hour. So the only place that Antichrist is mentioned in the Bible is in the letters of John here. Not the Gospel of John, but the letters of John. And this says that they were around in their day. That's how they knew it was the last hour, because the Antichrist that they heard was coming had come. So anyways, if you ask who Antichrist is, I don't believe the Bible teaches that the Antichrist is a man. There's no place that says in the Bible that says the Antichrist is some man. There's a man of lawlessness mentioned, and some people make that be some guy. They intermingle the word Antichrist, but it doesn't exist. There's nowhere in the Bible that says Antichrist is a man. Totally made up. Now, if you want to know who the man of lawlessness is, I believe that was Nero Caesar. Son of perdition. Yeah, very good. Very good, Hollyhock. It does say there's a son of perdition. Man of lawlessness, that's the same kind of a thing, son of perdition. So I believe that was referring to Nero Caesar, the guy who killed his own mother and killed Paul. And, yeah. So the mark of the beast stuff already happened. So I'm being very strategic in how I'm presenting this, because that stuff is in other parts of the Bible, written by different authors at different times, and it's definitely related. But I think it's the kind of thing that you got to go little by little and digest these things, because it's hard to swallow the pill altogether. So at this point, I kind of want to stay with Matthew 24 and how we talked about Matthew 24. I personally think you can't make the case that Jesus was talking about a future generation in that chapter. That's just what I personally think. I think it's talking specifically to the disciples, and there's different things he was going to tell them. And so I kind of want to focus on that. That stuff is related, and I do have opinions about that, and I will talk about that. I plan on just going through the whole Bible with you guys, so we can keep going through that stuff. And maybe, I don't know if we want to do the gospel after this, or maybe we want to skip to the Pauline epistles or Acts or something. I'm not sure. We'll talk about it after we finish Matthew. But yeah. My husband says your offspring Antichrist is not a man because he is. Well, the Bible doesn't say he's a man. There's not a verse in the Bible that says the Antichrist is a man. You can't find one. So I would be all ears if you could show me a verse that says the Antichrist is a man. The Antichrist appears 5 times in the scriptures, and they're only in 1 John and these passages we're reading right here. Revelation does not have Antichrist, Kola. The word Antichrist does not appear in Revelation. That's the thing. Hollyhock is exactly right on there. That's the problem with Revelation. That's why I'm talking about Matthew 24 the way we're talking about Matthew 24. That's why I made a video on Matthew 24. Because Revelation has things that are clearly symbolic. In fact, I would argue the whole thing is symbolic. It doesn't mean it's not representing actual events. But when it says that there's a dragon with 7 heads and 10 horns and 10 crowns on its heads and blasphemous names written on the heads, and a prostitute rides the beast, I don't think that that's a literal thing. We're not waiting for that to physically happen. So it's going to be symbolic of something. And then we're going to argue all day about what the symbolism is. And we can't ever decide for sure. There's no way to use the Bible to just say this is definitely what it all stands for. It's very cryptic, and it's very difficult, to be honest with you. There are some very present markers in Revelation that we will get to if we get to that point, that I think are very important for telling us the time frames of things. But there's a bajillion opinions on Revelation. Conversely, I believe if you read Matthew 24 for what it is, I don't see how you can get any other time frame out of it. And hopefully I made the case. If I didn't, that's okay. You don't certainly not to believe what I say. Oh, I see what you're saying, Kola. I'm all for. I would do that on my channel. So if you're interested, maybe I'll do a live, and we can do live talks and do some hardcore preterist questions on my personal opinions on some of those topics. There are some things that I would admit that I don't know and I don't have figured out. I do think that there are certain things that we can figure out. I believe Matthew 24 is very obvious, and I'm ashamed that I was so wrong on it for so many years, thinking that it was something different. So I'm very confident in Matthew 24, almost 100% confident. On Revelation, I'm going to tell you right up front, I'm like 30% confident about every little detail of Revelation. And so you're going to be disappointed if we do Revelation, because I won't be able to tell you many of the things. But there are some things I think can be known for sure. There are some hints in there. There's a part where our angel comes down and actually translates the vision for John. And there's some gold in there for telling us when and what and how those things were. There's some talk from Jesus himself in Revelation that's very, very useful. But there's a whole lot of things that I just straight up don't know. Straight up don't know. It was meant to be symbolic. I wasn't going to get into Revelation. I was trying to make you guys stick with Matthew 24, but it's just so fun to talk about. Okay, the point of Revelation, the entire point is in Revelation 1:1. The revelation of Jesus Christ, which God gave his servants to show them the things which must shortly take place. That's the point of Revelation. It's not the revelation of John. It's the revelation of Jesus Christ. And its purpose is to show his servants the things which must shortly take place. That's the point of Revelation. And I would say that's an entirely important verse for understanding the rest of the book. There's also a lot of things that we don't know. There's a deafening silence from the first century. There's a guy named Ed Stevens who's a preterist who believes that there was a rapture in 70 AD. And one of his main arguments for that is that there's an eerie silence. So we have the Bible, right? And the Bible was written, I believe all the books were written before 70 AD. And there's a whole study we could do on that. But besides that, obviously Pauline epistles were because Nero killed Paul. So obviously all that was written before 70 AD, all those things. Totally lost my train of thought. What was I going to say? Man, I totally lost it. About what? Well, about what silence? The silence about what didn't. We don't have anything. So we have the Bible, whole bunch of information, whole bunch of letters, epistles, and then we get to 70 AD, and there's nothing. We have Josephus, who was not a Christian, writing the historical account of what happened during 70 AD. But that's pretty much it. We don't have any writings from any of the other people that are Christians from the time. The earliest we get is a man named Eusebius, who he actually lived in the 4th century, 3rd century. And he wrote about what happened. He logged some things from his books, from other letters, some legends of what happened after that. But that's all we really got. So there's total silence about what happens. I don't think shortly can be thousands of years. I don't. Because think about it. He gave to show his servants the things which must shortly take place. If shortly doesn't mean shortly, it means far. That's wrong. The thing we get is that there's a day is 1,000 years and 1,000 years as a day. That's the verse we get in Peter. But if you actually go back and read what the context of that is, one, he undoes it right away. He says, a day is 1,000 years and 1,000 years is as a day. So it cancels itself out right in the sentence. Another part he says, the end of all things is near. If God gave a vision to this people, and think about what actually happened with Revelation, he told John, write these letters to these 7 churches. And there's specific things in these letters about things that they were dealing with. The Nicolaitans that God hated, all these things that they were wrestling with, these churches that had these issues. God told John to write a letter to these churches, and they sent them off to those churches. Those churches read these letters, and they were supposed to take them to heart. And the thought that it really wasn't for them, it's for us, completely falls on its face. When he tells the church of Philadelphia, don't worry, I'm going to keep you from the hour of trial that's going to come on the whole world. And it wasn't talking about them, and they're all going to be dead and gone, and that church just doesn't even exist anymore. I don't personally buy it. I don't think shortly means long, and long means shortly. God uses, there's a part in Revelation where it says, John is told in chapter 11 to measure the temple, and he's given a measuring rod. And an angel goes and measures the temple, and it says it was so many cubits wide by man's measurement, which the angel was using. So God used man's measuring stick. He made a stick measuring device and gave it to an angel that was man's measurement to measure these things. So why would God use man's measurement for this, but tell us it's shortly and soon going to take place, but it's for thousands of years down the road? I don't believe that. If he uses man's measurement for distance, he probably uses man's measurement for time. And there's other things in there that confirm that. That's not the only one. So, well, hey, Aunt Josie. I'm not saying, man, I forgot Faith Fit. I forgot your actual first name. But I'm not even saying that didn't happen. It could have all happened, just like it said. It also could be symbolic. To be fair, those passages you were referencing, they are very much debated in preterist circles. I would be worried about you, Beth, if you just jumped on board. I'm not saying you can't just jump on board, but if you didn't have misgivings and weren't hesitant, I'd be worried, because we should all be hesitant about everything. And you know what? Everything with prayer and petition, make your request known unto God. I know that's talking about requests, but at the same time, we should be using the Holy Spirit. We should be praying, asking for guidance to think about these things, to lay them on our hearts, and to, if it be wrong, correct them. I pray that all the time. If I'm wrong, God, please correct me on these things. And we should do that. And so I'd be extremely surprised if somebody who was skeptical to automatically switch right away. I would be very skeptical. So I don't want that of you. I just want to look at each verse as it comes, and maybe we can at least see what we think it's saying. And there are things I will tell you straight up when I don't know and I don't understand and I can't figure it out. And there's lots of things that I can't. But I do think that there's some things we can figure out. And there's other parts in Revelation. I can't believe where I'm actually, you got me to talk about Revelation. I told myself tonight we're only going to talk about Matthew 24, but here we are. Okay, so I'm going to show you some of the things that I enjoy about Revelation. So just a couple things, just on the time thing, okay? So it seems like we're all wanting to talk about this anyway, so here we are. I mentioned Revelation 1:1, but I want to show it to you. The revelation from Jesus Christ, which God gave him to show his servants what must soon take place. He made it known by sending his angel to the servant John. That's the first verse of Revelation. Now, the very end of Revelation, the very last chapter, last end of the chapter, end of the book. Why can't I hit it? There we go. Verse 20 there, he who testifies to these things says, yes, I am coming soon. So in preterism, we call it the bookend statements. The Revelation starts with, it's going to happen soon, ends with, it's going to happen soon. So, yeah, there is no Antichrist in Daniel 9. There is a man, there's the prince. There's a prince mentioned in Daniel 9. We can talk about that. Amen, Todd. Exactly right. That's what we should all be praying. Revelation 13 speaks how Antichrist is a real man. Okay, let's go look at it. Revelation 13. Beast out of the sea. Beast out of the earth. I don't see anywhere that says Antichrist. I saw a second beast coming out of the earth, 2 horns like a lamb, spake as a dragon. It performed great signs, caused fire to come down from heaven. Because of the signs, it was given power on the first to become the beast to deceive the inhabitants of the earth. The second beast was given power to give breath to the image of the first beast, so the image could speak and call all to worship it to be killed. It forced all people, great and small, rich and poor, free and slave, to receive a mark on their hands or on their foreheads, so they could not buy or sell unless they had the mark. But the thing is, though, is where do you get Antichrist in there? Antichrist is not in there. You have to get that from somebody else to make that say Antichrist. The word Antichrist is not in there anywhere. If there's a version that says Antichrist in here, I'm very interested to know what it is. I'm pretty certain there is not one. I'm not saying this doesn't happen. I'm not saying that there's not even a man. It says this calls for a person who has insight, calculate the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man. So I do believe there's a man that this refers to. I just don't believe he's Antichrist. I don't think that Antichrist doesn't mean anything. According to the biblical definition of Antichrist, anybody who denies that Jesus is the Christ, is the Son of God, is the Antichrist. Ironically, who's the one? Well, I shouldn't say that. Never mind. There are people today that deny that Jesus was the Christ. According to the Bible, that's Antichrist. I was going to show you one of the things I wanted to talk about. You guys have heard about the dragon in Revelation, right? The beast with 7 heads and 10 horns. Beast out of the... Actually, that might even be where we were just at. Okay, so look at this. I want to show you about the beast. So first off, Revelation 17 is important because of all the parts of Revelation, with all of its symbolism, an angel comes down and straight up gives us the interpretation to this part alone. Okay? And we can use this as a key. John wrote Revelation. Many people have argued whether or not it was the John of the Apostle. I believe that it was. But some other people think it's a different John. There's some interesting evidence for them, but you can't ever prove it. Anyways, Revelation 17, we have the thing. Revelation had the deal. The woman was drunk with the blood of God's people. And he says, anyways, he comes with the beast. The angel comes down, verse 7. Then the angel said to me, why are you astonished? I will explain to you the mystery of the woman and the beast she rides, which has 7 heads and 10 horns. The beast which you saw once was, and now is not, yet will come out of the abyss and go to its destruction. Verse 9, let's just skip down. This calls for a mind with wisdom. The 7 heads of the 7-headed beast are 7 hills on which the woman sits. They are also 7 kings. 5 have fallen, 1 is, the other has not yet come. When he does come, he must remain for only a little while. So according to the angel in Revelation, the beast with the 7 heads and 10 horns that comes up out of the sea, it says the heads are 7 kings. 5 have what? They have fallen. 1 is, and the other has not yet come. So we have right here in the Bible, the angel from God says that the 7-headed beast represents periods of time going forward. 7 heads, and there are 7 kings. 5 of them are already dead as of the writing of Revelation. And the 6th head, 1 is. He was currently in power. The 7th head, it says, has not come, but when he comes, he must remain for a little while. So, anyways, all I want to tell you, we could talk about what I think the heads are and what I think they're reference to. I think I make a good case for what I think that they are, but I don't have any biblical information as a result. But I hope you can see that according to the angel, this 7-headed beast was almost dead as of Revelation's writing. 5 of the heads were already fallen, dead, gone. 1 of them was in power and 1 was going to come. So there was only 1 head left after the head that was currently reigning before that beast was gone. I just find that astonishing. Kelly, that's a really complicated question. I'm going to choose to ignore it for now. Not saying we won't get to it. I don't think there's going to be an end of the world. So, but as far as the rest of your stuff, we can talk about that at another point. But that's just all opinion. Again, I don't know if there's an end of the world. I haven't talked to God. Maybe he's got an end of the world plan. I don't see it. But yes, Hannah, Revelation was written by John the Apostle. There are people that disagree and think he was written by a different John. That was actually started all the way back in 150 AD. There were people that thought that. The information surrounding Revelation's authorship and its even time of writing got mixed up very early. Do you think you have to have the preterist view to be saved? Absolutely not. It's not salvation at all. This has nothing to do with salvation. It's just interesting topics and conversation. What actually happens in our future isn't in any of our future. The one thing we all have in common is we all die in about 100 years after we're born. Much sooner than that most of the time. So that's our one common fate. I'd much rather focus on that and living our lives for the Lord every day and all this other stuff. The only part I think it's dangerous is when, I shared it before. There's a saying that was going around when I was younger that says, God didn't send me to clean the fishbowl, he sent me to fish. And the idea there is you're supposed to just not worry about the world and how evil and terrible and mucky it is and just save people. But I think that's absolutely wrong. You know what happens if you don't clean a fishbowl? The fish die. So I think we are to be good stewards of what God gave us and take care of what God gave us and fight for what's right and put out evil and all that stuff. So So yeah, so I hope you can at least see that the dragon there. I don't know, never said anything about it, but according to the angel in Revelation, the 7 heads are 7 hills. 5, they are also 7 kings. 5 have fallen. 1 is, the other has not yet come. So as of Revelation's writing, 5 of the heads of this beast were dead. 1 was currently in power. The beast of Revelation was already in power as of the writing of the book. Will you go clean the fishbowl then? I'll be busy fishing. Oh man, Chad, them's fighting words. I really like the enthusiasm of the post-mill people. I'm not post-mill, but I really enjoy the enthusiasm of bringing this kingdom for him. And you know what? We talk about all these corruption and politics, but Christians don't run because they think it's somehow dirty. It's wrong. If you want to run, go run and change the world. What Andrea would say, you probably couldn't do it because it's all been pre-decided. I don't know if it has or not, but as long as you know Jesus Christ and He is alone the way, the rest is semantics. Absolutely, I could not agree higher. How can you probably understand eschatology end times? You don't understand the Eucharist. Well, that's a pretty loaded question. So. I would say we can do that very easily. We can sure talk about the Eucharist, but I'm just gonna let that one die on the vine. Don't mean any disrespect to anybody. Yeah. What I'm talking about, well, it doesn't really matter. I can tell you what I'm talking about. I think we should do whatever we can to help this world and make it a godly place. I don't like the idea of Christians not being active in their communities or active in things because they think that the end times are around the corner and it's a futile effort. Meaning that God basically loses the battle. Satan's going to come in here, take over the world, make it evil, evil, evil. It's going to get worse and worse and worse until he returns, and that's it. I don't like that. I like the one where we have the Great Commission, where he says, go and make disciples of all the nations. I think we can do that. I think we can make disciples of all the nations. That's my goal. That's what I want to do. And I think we can do it. The other view says we can't do it. That even though you want to make disciples out of all the nations, you can't make disciples out of all the nations. It's going to get evil and evil and evil, and Satan's going to basically win. And I don't subscribe to that. Agreed. God is victorious. And I don't mean to put it in such a light. I'm trying not to be very, very harsh on that other views. I held that view for a long time, so that's okay. I do get a little passionate about Christians who are apathetic and think that God doesn't want them to be active in their communities. Like if there was I know Christians that would not vote for anything, even in local elections.
Here's your reminder.
And if there could be a Satanist running versus a Christian, and they would just not vote and say, it doesn't matter, God doesn't want me to vote, it's bad to vote, and they would make the argument that you shouldn't vote. And I don't know that voting is even all that anyways. There's lots of other ways besides voting that you can help your communities. So, yeah, that's the truth, Hollyhock. That verse, lukewarm, I think about that all the time. He says, you are neither hot nor cold. I would wish you were either one or the other. He'd rather you be cold than lukewarm. And that goes hand in hand with what Jesus said. Jesus talked nothing about, it was hardest on the hypocrites. He talked all the time against hypocrisy. That's lukewarm. Claiming to serve God, but not really doing it. That's lukewarm. That's the one he's going to vomit you out of his mouth.
It's not gone. Hey, Daddy, can I make some milk?
Yeah.
Milk, Daddy.
In a little bit. That's an interesting question, Beth. I've shared it before on the channel that I think a lot of questions go back to predestination versus free will. And so we go back and forth, back and forth. Yes, the Bible absolutely says that all people in power were placed there by God. At the same time, we are his hands in the world. The kingdom is among us, and he wants us to bring it about. And he tells us to respect the rulers who are in authority, for they were placed there by God. So I think if you have good to do, in fact, James says that. The man who knows the good he ought to do and doesn't do it, sins. Am I a Calvinist? No. Not a Calvinist. Me and Chad we've had some conversations, but we're not Calvinist.
Hey, Daddy,
Absolutely not.
What day is it tomorrow?
It is, baby girl, I have a Bible study.
But Daddy,
It's Naruto night tomorrow.
yay!
I know, go play, baby girl.
Do you think it's March night that we're gonna sleep overnight?
Go play.
Okay.
I'll get you some stuff after we're done with Bible study, okay?
Okay, where's my tablet? Okay, be patient.
Go play.
Where's my tablet?
Go play. Go, you can get your tablet, but go play. Am I reformed? No. Never been reformed. I just like the name Christian. You know why I like Christian? Because the Bible uses it. It says they called them Christians first in Antioch. And I think that's a fine name. Anything else, I think, is divisiveness. So we don't have to agree on things. Baby girl, go play, please.
Hey, Dad,
Go downstairs and play.
But Dad, I want to be alone. Play up here.
Depravity of man. Carolyn, are you a Calvinist? You seem to be quoting some tulip to me, it seems like. The way is in there. I have some Greek stuff about the way. I often wonder if they're translating it wrong. The way is biblical, but I'm not certain that that's the way it should have been translated or not.
Bobby.
I like Christian, though. I don't believe in total depravity, if that's what you're going after, Carolyn. I love talking to Calvinists because Calvinists, they study. And I like people who study. So we could have some good conversations about that, but that's way beyond the scope of what I think this Bible study is supposed to be. I don't want to hear your anti-tulip stuff either, Chad. That's Bible study. I don't want to make enemies of anybody. I don't make enemies. I don't have to agree with you guys. You don't have to agree with me. You don't have to believe the preterist view. Not at all. We're just going through the Bible, and I want to take it what it says and just read it and continue on. Whatever that makes you, it makes you. And you know, if you're a different kind, I mean, a lot of these words, I call them pills. So if you're a quote Calvinist, you have a pill of things you take. You believe all these things, and it puts you all in a little pill. And I think that's a poor descriptor of anybody. So I'd rather talk about individual topics and things and not get into I'm this denomination or religion or belief or whatever, and you're that, and we disagree, and so we should fight, and I just don't like it. I like Christian, believe in the soulless. I didn't agree with Andrea about everything. If I don't agree with my wife about everything, why should I agree with everybody in my church? Every time somebody disagrees with somebody else, we start a new denomination. A denomination is built on differences, not on things we have in common. I'd much rather have all kinds of people in a room and we can have a nice conversation about predestination versus free will. I love those conversations very much. But instead, we find a bunch of people that kind of believe the same thing as us, and we all go to that church, and we hate the other ones, and I can't go there. I got to go to this church. And I just don't think that that's ever what God ever wanted from us. Very good, Linda. I'm in the same boat. Christian, yeah. Christios. Like if you take Christ and you put it in the, I don't know what you call it, Christs, almost. That's a bad way to say it. The Christians, you know, it's like saying, you know, we're Wyoming, we're Wyomingians. Wyomingites? I don't know how they figure all those things out. Anyways, that's the word there. It's just the word for Christ. And it says they called them Christians first in Antioch. You know what their religion was? The religion was Judaism. They were still Jews. They were still, they were a Judean religion. They were Jews. They called them Christians as a nickname. But they were still, I just think that's fun to think about. I guess it did turn into a question and answer. We're definitely not going to do Matthew 25 now. Was that Claudia? Yeah, I think it was. She's sitting right here, so I didn't hear her, but the Jewish traditions, yeah, I've had several conversations with people like that. Their Hebrew roots movement is a lot of times what it comes from. In a lot of ways, it makes my job easier with the preterist stuff, but in a lot of other ways, I think it's getting back to the old covenant. And it's resurrecting that old stuff. And I think that's a bad thing to do. So that's just the new wave of things. When I was a kid, it was a new age movement, right? Now we're into the Hebrew roots movement. Tomorrow will be another movement. And so it's very creative. I like the things that some of the things they say, I think that they're really good on. But that's the problem with pills. That's the problem with denominations. Like if I have a clever thought, like here we're reading about Matthew 24. We read Matthew 24 and think, I'm telling you, I think it's applying to people he's talking to. I think it's an easy leap. I don't think I'm asking you to take a leap. But then people call it preterism. So now I'm trying to, now you look up preterism and you say, preterists believe this, preterists believe that, preterists believe this. I don't believe all that. I'm not a preterist. And so we like to take pills. We can't just say, oh, interesting thought, Tom. Look at that verse. I've never thought about it that way. Instead, we got to become something. We've got to become a denomination. And that's the same with the Hebrew roots. They take some interesting thoughts about James. They use James a lot. Or they talk about the law. Some of the messages that Paul talked about. Is the law evil? No, it's still there. It's not there. Is it here? Are we not under it? Yes, we are. All those conversations that Paul was wrestling with in those days, they make some good points about that. They say, yeah, I see what you're saying. What are you guys again? Oh, we're this movement, Hebrew roots movement. They don't call themselves that, but for whatever lack of a better term. Hebrew roots movement. Okay, and you guys believe what? This, and this. Okay, now I believe this, and this, and this. Just because one thing I agreed with you on. I'd rather go a la carte on everything. So we can just believe the things you want to believe and don't believe the things you don't want to believe. Let's not go under some sort of a label that says, now I got to sprinkle instead of dunk when we baptize, and now I've got to do... I've got to say this, or I've got to say that, or I've got to pray like this, or pray like that, or I've got to believe these things about once saved, always saved, or this or that, and otherwise, and you don't need that. Let's just look at every topic individually and just talk about it. Let's not have to marry ourselves into a certain banner and say, I now believe everything that's under this banner. I think that's wussy and lazy. Yeah, I'm a Paul, I'm a Cephas. Yeah, exactly. Same with me, Lynn. I always call myself non-denominational, but now non-denominational is a denomination. If you say you're non-denominational, it makes people think certain things. Oh, you're one of those. You raise your hands when you sing and when you pray, and you maybe you flop on the floor like a fish, and or whatever. I'm none of those things. I am just a Christian.
Daddy,
So I'm nothing else. So
Dad, I'm bored.
I was trying to go back under the law and didn't realize the Hebrew roots. They don't like Galatians. Oh yeah, they don't like Paul. They think Paul is a false apostle because Paul just rains on their whole Hebrew roots parade. It's very alluring. They use very good verses. And they make you think, oh, interesting. I've never thought about that way. And they make good points. And that are, as humans, that's what we do is, oh man, this guy's right about this thing. He must be right about everything. I need to get a car that he drives. I need to go where he goes and get my hair combed the same way that he combs his hair. That's kind of what we do. Instead of just saying, ooh, interesting point about that. I don't believe any of your other garbage. You know, before you know it, they'll have you back on all the feast days again and saying you're going to go to hell if you don't keep all the feasts. It's just silliness. Chad.
Dad, stop talking.
That's a good point. That's a good point, Hannah. Absolutely. I am totally in the same boat. I'm not saying that you should not go to your church or not believe the things that your church believes or whatever. That's all fine. I just want you to, I would hope you guys would just not all be mindless robots and just not believe something because your church there. Put it into perspective. I had a good friend who's an Assembly of God preacher in Upton, 20 miles away. You guys drove with me to Upton one day. Greatest town on earth, remember? And we talked for hours. He called me to fix his computer, and it's funny, I fixed all the preachers' computers in 100 miles. But we talked for hours and hours and hours. And he told me, well, you know what? I'm supposed to preach this. I don't believe that, though. So I try not to talk about it very much unless they're in the audience. Because they have people come watch them sometimes. And if they don't preach the same things, or if they preach things that's against them, they'll get fired. He was afraid of getting fired. He was telling me what he believed on once saved, always saved. And their denomination said that they had to believe once saved, always saved. But he said, I don't believe that. And I'm not going to get into that topic right now. And I think it's a bad topic to talk about in Bible studies, by the way. But he said, I don't believe that. But I can't talk about it. Shh, don't tell anybody, please. Because he was fearing for his job. And I just think that's all wrong. Why don't we just disagree on what we disagree on? Why do you have to be what those things are? But if your church believes certain things, don't stop going to that church. And there's probably good reasons why the church has that they have the doctrines that they hold. I would ask you just to study them. If you're believing the right things, I had to ask myself a question. What if I just got lucky, right? Mam Fan can appreciate this, although I don't know if she can read lips good enough to understand what I'm saying. But there's all these religions, right? But how many religions are there? There's 40,000 religions. Why is my religion the right one? Sometimes I'd ask myself when I was a teenager, what if I just got lucky? Meaning that I think Christianity is the right one. And I'm basically a Christian because my parents were a Christian. They taught me how to be a Christian. So did I just get lucky? If I had parents that were a different religion, would I be going to hell right now? Would I not believe these things? And so I think it's important that whatever you believe, you have a reason for believing it. Don't just believe it because somebody told you to believe it. Read and research and decide. And I tell people, I have an atheist I talk to that say, there's 40,000 religions. How do you know yours is the right one? I say, well, if you think that there's merit in other ones, you should check them all out. Do your best to try. There's not actually 40,000 different gods. There's just different religions and ways to worship some of the same gods. So you should go to Krishna and Muhammad and all these different things and see who's right. Figure them out. Learn about them. If you really care, you should believe what you believe because you've studied it out. Otherwise, you're just lucky. Anyways, I don't mean exactly right. I want to reiterate that point that I'm not hating on your religion or your denomination or what church you go to. That's all fine and good. And in fact, if we were to go back to regular churches again, I would gravitate towards certain denominations. I would. That doesn't mean I believe everything that they say. In fact, I have a hard time not sitting in church and not disagreeing with something somebody says. But that's okay. I can disagree with them. I think the primary thing we go to church for is for people, to exercise the gifts of the body of Christ, to be encouragements to one another, to be there for each other, to be like a family. I think that's the point of church. What you believe about all these different topics, that's just Bible study, which is why this is called Bible study.
What are you doing? Dad?
Oh, the Hebrew root stuff? Yeah, Yeshua. Oh, yeah. I'm not going to talk about that because Yeshua it's gained acceptance.
Who's going machine?
Apparently, I'm talking about it now. I don't agree with calling Jesus Yeshua. But we can talk about that another time. That's not necessarily something we need to talk about right now. But yes, Mrs. Todd. I'm sorry, I don't remember your name. But you're absolutely right. They go back to all that stuff.
Yeah. Sophia, let's hit the heart. Sophia, let's hit the heart. Come on.
That is the Hebrew word. Here I am talking about it. I said I was going to talk about it. Yes. Yeshua is the Hebrew version of Joshua. Joshua and Jesus are the same name. In Hebrew, Joshua is Yeshua. And so Jesus and Joshua are the same name. And so people say, oh, it's Jesus, so it's like Joshua and Yeshua. But there's no scrap of paper in existence that calls Jesus Yeshua. Every single time Jesus is ever mentioned, 100% of the time, it's Jesus in Greek. So it's never mentioned in Hebrew. In fact, I have a video on my channel. I don't believe Jesus spoke Hebrew. I don't think he knew Hebrew. He spoke Aramaic and Greek. And primarily he taught in Greek. And there's verses in the Bible that say, it is by this name, Jesus, that we are to be saved. There is no name under heaven given to men by which we can be saved. But Jesus, Jesus. So when there's verses out there saying there's no other name under heaven by which you can be saved, I'm a little leery of calling him anything else other than what Peter was calling him. Latin don't have a Y? That may be. I'm unfortunately very bad at Latin. There's a lot of, Beth, don't worry about that. I'm making a little bit of a deal of the name right now, but there's a whole section of cults called the secret name cults, meaning, and the Hebrew roots people are generally in that vein, that God's name, unless you call him by his actual name, he can't hear you, which is dumb. God hears everything. And so unless you pray using God's special name, he doesn't hear you, you can't be saved, none of the blah, blah, blah. And if you join their church, they'll tell you his secret name. And there's a million of them, from Jehovah to Yah to Yeh to Abba Yah, all these different things. And it's silliness. In fact, in Revelation, Jesus gets a new name. And we don't know what that was, but whatever it is, interestingly, in Greek, the word for name, nomos, onomos, is the same word for reputation. That just floored me. So when someone says the name of Jesus, it's not saying Jesus is by what we're saved. It's onomos. It's his reputation. It's who he is. So it says at the name of Jesus, not writing down Jesus. Oh, I got the power. It's not at all what it means. It's who he is, which is why so often if their reputation didn't fit their name, Jesus changed their name. You're Cephas, I'm going to call you, or you're Simon, I'm going to call you Cephas. I'm going to call you Peter. You're no longer going to be whatever the heck Simon stands for. And there's lots of times people's names get changed. So, yeah, name Jesus. And there's another part that says we call him Emmanuel. I don't see him calling him that. That's all from the Old Testament. But I think it's, yeah. Anyways, of all the names Jesus ever gets called, he's never once been called Yeshua until our day and age. So it's one of my pet peeves. But generally, people who say Yeshua, they think that they're doing the right thing. They think that they're calling him his real name. The idea is, I'm speaking Hebrew, I'm holier than you. That's why I don't generally like it. Oh, I didn't see what Thomas said. I wasn't even looking. Oh yeah, Chad's got a nice mix of all the different names that are secret names cults. God says his name is I am, but no one calls him that. Yep. Yeah, it is neat. I was floored to learn that name is reputation. Imagine if you read the whole Bible again, and instead of the word name, you said the word reputation. That at the reputation of Jesus, every knee shall bow in heaven and on earth and under the earth. There is no other reputation by which we must be saved. And you shall give him, he shall have the name reputation, he shall have the reputation Emmanuel. Meaning God with us. That's who he is. I mean, it just, all these lights just go off in my head, all over the place. I thought I was right, but how do you feed the sheep with a name they never heard? Yeah, isn't that the truth? That's what it means. It is the word name. It's like when you called somebody, you called them by their reputation. That's why you can't be Abram anymore. You're going to be Abraham, son of God. You're not going to be, whatever, Jacob. You're not going to be deceiver. You're not a deceiver anymore. You are Israel. Israel. It changes his name. It's because he became a different person. Isn't he rightly named Jacob? Isn't he rightly reputationed Jacob? It's just fun. Explain John the Washer. You mean John the Washer? Yeah. Ioannes. It's the same thing. It's also the soft J. I don't know anything about the J. I don't know that name. So I don't know anything about John. Reputized. I like that.
How did this come from?
You get a migraine over all this fuss. Sorry. Don't mean to give you a migraine. And again, if you think about his name being I am, that's his reputation. He is, he was, he will be, he exists. What? Night night, baby girl. I love you, sweet baby.
Daddy, who's after this?
It's after 8. We're going to close up here pretty quick.
But Dad, today's our birthday.
No, it's not. Saturday's your birthday.
But we already had a birthday before.
Come on, go to bed. I'll come help you tuck you in a second.
But I don't want to go to bed. I'm scared.
As far as praying, Cindy, you call him whatever you want to call him. Honestly, I don't think it really matters. It does say it's the name of Jesus, and so do you pray to Jesus or do you pray to the Father? I've heard people talk about saying you should pray to the Father and Jesus is our intercessor, but I don't know that it makes a difference. In my opinion, they're the same person anyways. Go on, I'll tuck you in a second.
But Dad, I'm free. When I like your look Dad, it's going to be a watch. This.
Oh, family members become atheists. He become atheist, so he used to be a Christian. You can use that against them a lot of times. Actually, you got to find out why they became an atheist. Most people, when they made that decision, there's no talking to them. There's no talking to them. So I think the advice would be, he already knows you can't sleep at night because he's an atheist. Let that work in your favor. The story of the Good Samaritan is to be ready when there's a man down in your path. Don't go driving the roads looking for a man down. Don't try to force stuff into your friend. Just wait until God puts him down in your path. There's going to be a time where he says something that's going to be a good in for you to talk. At that point, you talk. And I think trying to force it down his throat. Now, of course, if he's an atheist, chances are he's all up in your jam all the day long. So you have lots of time to talk. So you'll have an opportunity. I think it's important to act like you don't care, and that's hard to do because you do care. But you can find out why you became an atheist. You can try to address that if you want. But most of the time, when people do that, I have several people in my life that I talk to. They're that way. Generally, there's no talking to them. There's no getting through to them. They have to decide on their own. So, but if I have some people, I know certain people that become an atheist over in times. And I then use preterism to wake them up. But that's a very specific instance. Not everybody's that way. Nothing wrong with the head coverings. If you want to do that, you can do it. Oh, people are showing up now. Bible study from now on has been at 7 for all you who are just joining us. I switched it to 7 because it was hard. It was too late. and it was hard doing the kids going to bed right at that time and all that stuff. So
Wait, you switched it from 7 because it's too late to 8.
no, from 8 to 7.
Yeah, he said because it's too late.
8 was too late. We were doing it at 8, so I switched it to 7.
Oh.
Yes, I'm doing okay, ma'am.
So gross. It's a gas station. 3 doors in the garage door. The garage door, I can close it open.
Because 7, 8, 9.
One more, but you can't place the door in the door.
What's the other one?
Why is the door so hairy?
What's the Yoda one?
Oh my gosh, I would just use it.
I don't remember it now.
I can't think if you wear it one in there. I mean, it's not like super duper hairy. Probably threw it on the wall.
It's something like, why is 7? You know, it's why is 7 afraid of 8? Because 7, 8, 9. But the other one is why was Yoda? Why the Yoda one? Why is Yoda afraid of? Why was the 6 afraid of 7? Because 6, 7, 8. That's stupid. Amen. Why do we should have that attitude? Instead, when someone says they want to cover their heads and someone else says, that's not what it's about, you shouldn't be covering your head. And we'll argue about that, right? People will go to the mat over head coverings. Come on, people. And that's what I'm talking about with all this other stuff. Once saved, always saved. Think about that for a second. Once saved, always saved is a question that really irritates people. If you're either saved or you're not, why do you want to argue with the fact that you can be really evil and still get saved? Why not just be good? Why do we have to talk about that? Or I even talk about the baptism stuff. Do you want to get baptized? Baptized. It doesn't make a difference. It's not something we should go to the mat on. There are things we should go to the mat on. I think all these subtopics aren't important. I think we should mind our own business. We talk about head coverings, but we can let people, I'm not even going to say it. We don't criticize people's clothes.
Wait, that's a lie.
It's just silly.
Some people do in the dirt bags.
Yeah. You shouldn't then, Judah.
Oh.
Yep, we'll bow out, guys. Thomas beat you to it. What did he say? To maybe put it into perspective for you, because we talk about head coverings, because head coverings are mentioned in the Bible. So people form opinions. What about if I pray with my hands folded like this or like this? Are you guys going to chastise me for doing either of these or none of the above, not folding my hands? Is that the kind of thing we should be arguing about? No, I hope you can agree, no, that's lame. That's lame sauce. And so all this other stuff doesn't make a difference. You know what's interesting? There's a part where Paul talks where it says, some are preaching Christ out of vain deceit, and they're eager for money to get rich. So, and there's other people who are not doing that. And he says, I don't even care whether from false motive, all I know is from false motives or pure, Christ is preached. He didn't even care if they were preaching for financial gain. He didn't care if they were preaching and they were wicked. All he cared is they were preaching Christ. Today, we would be talking all day long, you're a hypocrite and you blah, blah, blah. We would care if they were preaching out of vain deceit or to get rich. But in reality, none of that makes a difference. It's all Doesn't make a difference. And worse, if you tell somebody who really enjoys covering their head, that's wrong, you shouldn't do that, God hates you for doing that, that just tears their little spirit up and it serves no purpose. You go home a baby smacker. You know, that's terrible. It's terrible. And there's nothing wrong with covering your head. So
Is it Mikey? Mikey. You're welcome. I think that's not
if you want to cover, Diana, you can.
You know what you
The Bible talks about that the long hair is given to a woman as a head covering as well. You know, you can cover if you feel it respectful. It's like if you want to get on your knees and pray. That's just respectful. That doesn't mean that you're doing some sort of legalistic thing saying that I believe God will hear you. Do people that cover their heads always cover their heads when they pray? I mean, there's times in the Bible where it says people prayed under their breath. And probably not. Jesus prayed on the cross. You think he had his head covered? Not that he's a man, I guess, because he didn't have to cover his head. I'm sure I can find another example of a woman praying. Hannah, you know, in the Bible, right? She prayed and her mouth was moved and Eli thought she was drunk. So, of course, I don't know if she had her head covered or not. But the point is, you don't have to cover your head. God still hears your prayers no matter what you do. But if you want to cover your head, there's that verse in the Bible that says when you pray, go into your room and cover your head. So I think that the context is a little different, but it doesn't make much difference. Absolutely. No, I understand, Deanna. It's not bad. You do whichever you'd like.
Wait, over here.
You can do it or not do it. I literally put it in the same boat as folding hands. That's why I mentioned that. Because even though the Bible talks about women having a head covering, I think that's misinterpreted a lot of times. And I think it's a sign of respect. It shows submission. Shows submission to God. And so if you want to show that, to you that shows submission, hey, maybe you show submission to God by wearing Mickey Mouse lapel. Maybe in your culture, a Mickey Mouse lapel makes you submissive. And so, heck, wear a Mickey Mouse lapel and be submissive to God. It doesn't make a difference.
Then you go take the cup, then you do this, then you do that, until it's filled up. And then,
Yep, the kids are all getting in bed. I probably better wrap up here, guys. But I so much love talking to you that I have a hard time bowing out.
put it up.
Do you think it's a benefit to read the Apocrypha? I do think there's benefit in reading it. I think that there's some interesting reasons why the Protestants took them out, and I think you should be interested to know those reasons. I think you should be aware of them. But I think they're very beneficial, and there's some good stuff in them. So, Josephus should be in the canon. Except he wasn't a Christian. But yeah, I have no problem with it.
Neat.
We were all over the place tonight, weren't we? All right, I'm going to sign out, guys. I'll talk to you later. Well, thank you, Nicole. That was very kind.